Hi, I'm Kirk from DPC, and this channel is all about cutting the learning curve so you can get on with the creative process. Today we're going to go through the 4 things that I needed to do in order to feel comfortable operating my new 1080 130 watt CO2 laser. Let's get into it. When you look up the word origin, the meaning is the point or place where something begins, arises, or is derived. This is great because it's exactly what we're talking about when we're referring to the position of the laser head on the laser bed relative to the position or the start point on the workspace within the Lightburn software that I use. So when I'm referring to the set home position or the starting origin that is set for our home position on my laser, I'm referring to the back right hand corner. The factory set home position might be different on your laser. So if you have a Ruida controller, by pressing the reset button, it will first take you to the factory set home position. And when I refer to the origin within Lightburn, you can see that because I've set it in the back right hand corner, the 0 position of X and Y is now relative to my work bed in the back right hand corner. You can set this by going to your device settings and clicking on the tool icon, and then setting the correct origin within the basic settings at the top. Okay, so there's also reference to job origin in Lightburn on the right hand side there under your laser toolbox, and you'll see it start from that has 3 options, and then job origin which has 9 checkboxes. So let's have a look at how that works. If I draw a very simple shape in my workspace, you can see that we have these square grey position anchors around the actual shape that I've drawn, and one of them is highlighted green. Okay, and if you look over here in the center, that checkbox is green. So if I move it to the center, the green moves to the center. If I move it straight above in the middle at the top or at the rear, you'll see there it is, highlighted there. So it's relative. So what I'm actually doing is I'm saying to Lightburn, I want the origin of the job to be from this position. And the starting point is in the current position. So if I wanted to just place a piece of work material on the bed, and I wanted to bring the laser right over into the center of it, just using my left, right, back, forth arrows, what I would do is I would set the job origin to the middle and the start from current position. So I would know then that the laser is going to say, well, I'm starting from the middle and I'm going to do my job from the center out. Now, it might not optimize the actual cut that way, but the actual position of the material relative to the position of the laser on the bed, that's what you're saying. So it's a very easy way to center a laser over a piece, and then all you need to do is click the frame button on the Ruida controller and it will frame around the workpiece, and you're going to know whether or not your theory, I suppose, and job placement relative to this workspace is correct. So let's take a look at user origin. I'll be using user origin, I think, more than anything else because I want to run jigs. And that means I want to do multiple items positioned on a workspace, and I want to do them at the same time. So if I hypothetically have a whole heap of tags, they might be, key tags, and I will create a jig that would have a whole heap of engraved recessed positions for these tags to be sitting in. I could do, I might have a job run of 100 or something like that, or 200. So I want to make sure I can just quickly place them and do multiple runs of one particular thing. So how would I do that? What I would do is I have a piece that I would put here and a piece that I would put here on the bed to make sure that my jig is square. And then I've got a little tiny origin point in the corner where I would put the light of the laser and target that. So I can position the laser over the bottom right hand corner. Then I would set my job origin from that corner. So I'm working out from that point, and the start from user origin. So I've run the laser at that, straight over top of that job. I know my job is square because I've put some pieces in there to make it square. I've also taped down my honeycomb so it doesn't move around. And what I can do now is I can place a bunch of items in there, start from that position. So my artwork will be there, 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 and there. The tags will be placed inside those circles on the jig, there, 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 and there. And I can just go for it. Now, if we take a look at absolute coordinates and I select that one, you can see that that little green square now has gone to the home position that's relative to the home position on the machine. And what we're saying now is that let's take everything from x0, y0. So that means that you would need to know exactly if you placed a piece of artwork here, and that was the artwork that you wanted to print, if that was a picture that big, you would need to know the exact position from 0 on your bed, the home position on your bed, relative to this piece on your workspace. The idea of a ramp test is to find the ideal height from the bottom of the laser head and the top of the workpiece that you want to engrave or cut. So we're going to achieve that by creating a ramp out of a piece of timber and using a block to elevate it underneath, and then running a straight line with the laser along the face of that piece of timber and use that to identify the optimum height. Let's have a look at what happens with the laser. So I just grabbed a magnifying glass I had and a little multi-LED torch, and you can see that as I move it further away and closer to the surface, there is a point that it actually can show you all the multi-LEDs, and then if I get too close it gets out of focus, and if I go further away it gets out of focus. So I've got my piece of timber set up as a ramp on the bed of my laser, and I have a file which is a single straight line set to run from the current position, 300 mils a second at 65% power. Because the surface of the timber is gradually moving away from the laser head, what you're going to get is a thick line to start. It'll move to a thin line and then back out off focus to a thick line again. And all we need to do now is choose the optimum focal point, or where it's a clean, thin line in the middle, and mark that, move the laser over above it, and measure the distance from the top of the surface to the head of the laser. Mine just happened to be 8 mil. So I have an amp meter on the front and I have a dial on the right that's trim pot. And I wasn't sure, one, what the amp meter should be reading, and two, where the pot should be set. So after a bit of research, I found that the recommended maximum MA at 100% power is 26 MA, listed here in the Recce manual for my W4. So what I thought I would do is bring it to 95% power at 26 MA out. And I achieved this by just drawing some lines in Lightburn, bringing my laser out of focus, and then I just ran the file, looked at the front of the machine while it was running, and adjusted the trim pot. After doing my amp test, I realized that the lines weren't lined up, but they were lined up in Lightburn. So I thought, okay, I need to make an adjustment here, and you do that by doing this. Click on the toolbox here for your device settings and you will see Enable Scan Offset Adjustment, and enable it, okay, because that's what you're going to need in order to be able to enter the parameters to basically shift the line over. And if I add one here, you can see it says line shift. Okay, that's what we want to do. We want to shift the line over. And a note that you should really be paying attention to here is you will need to do that for every individual speed. I'll give you an example. If it's set here at 100 and my line offset is that I'm going to enter as 0.1, and I go OK, when I run a speed now of 100, it's going to shift the line over 0.1. But if I run something at 125, it's not going to pick anything up. There's going to be no shift. So it's going to be out what it was before you even, when you realized you have to do this, that's how much it's going to be out. So you're going to have to add a 125, and it probably is 0.1 at that. It might not change at that speed. Okay, but if you don't have it in there, it's not going to register an offset adjustment. It's not going to make an adjustment at a speed if it's not in here. So if I add another one Another thing to note is if I add another one at 200, the line shift might start to creep up a little bit, okay? It might be 0.11. And you have to run a file and test this. I'll show you how to do that in a second. If I go to the extremes and I go to 600 millimeters a second, the line shift's probably going to be, 0.25 or something. Okay, so it will increase as your speed increases. So for every speed that you want to run the laser at, you will need to make a separate adjustment. So to set it up, you may just want to go 100, 150, 200, 250, 300, 350. So at least that way you've made adjustments on some common speeds that you'll be using. When you set up a file for it, just make a square. It could be 50 by 50, just like I've done there. And if I double click the layer, you'll see that my interval I've set at 0.1. If I just reset to defaults and I bring that over here, you can see that it's 0.1. And if I play that, you'll see that it looks like it's solid. But if I zoom in, there are gaps. Okay, they're lines, but they're very close together, and that's where you get that fill or shading. So if I redouble click this and I go make that line interval 1 mil and go OK, and then we play it again, I don't need to zoom in because it's created a mil gap between the lines. And this is great. It's going to let me see whether these are lined up. Now, you might not have very good eyesight, okay? It's irrelevant. You might want to go 1.5, okay? And if I play that, you'll see that, okay, they're even 1.5 mil apart. You want to get it to a point where you can see between the lines clearly enough that you can see if the edges are aligned. Now, you will need to run that program at that interval at 100 there is your starting speed. And you'll need to run that and then come back and make an adjustment, then run it and make an adjustment until you get those lines lined up. And do that for every speed. Thanks for watching. If you found this information useful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, as I will be doing more videos shortly.